Hi guys, my name's Chris and we're going to talk today about ways to learn songs. When I have students in lessons on any instrument, there is a 3-step process that I typically use to learn songs. So the first step of this would be to physically play the chords or whatever, on whatever instrument you're playing, play the notes out. The second step would be to consolidate information and memorize, to get your eyes away from the page and get the music into your head and ears. And then the third step would be to play this rhythmically. So this means to play along to a song or along to a metronome or a drum beat. For the sake of our discussion today, I'm going to create a song so that we can look at it. All right, so like say we're taking a progression. We're going to go C, E, F, and C, okay? So say we take that progression. Right, the first step of what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to physically play those chords. We're going to talk strictly from guitar perspective today, but this could be applied to any instrument, okay? So to play those chords, we're going to get a C chord. Make sure all of those strings are ringing out. It feels comfortable. You have the right fingers. You're strumming the right strings, all that sort of stuff. We're going to play an E chord. In this case, I'm going to play an E7. We're going to play an F chord. I'm doing an F over C here with a little major 7 on the top. And we're going to come back to C. Okay? So the first step of that is just, can I get these to ring out? Can I actually play any of these things? If you're doing this, for example, on drums, can you play the pattern accurately, even at, like, not at tempo? Can you just play those notes in order? If you're doing this on piano, even if you're reading on piano, right? The idea would be just to play through what you're reading, the entire page, in one idea. You don't have to get it rhythmically right, but just get it in the orders, make sure the fingering is right, all that sort of stuff. Okay? So the second step here is going to be we're going to cut down the amount of information that you have. All right, so if we're looking at this progression, and I got a C, I got an E, I got an F, and I got a C, what I could do right away is go, okay, well, I have a C at the beginning and the end of that progression. And as well, each one of those is equally 4 beats apiece. All right, so now I don't have to think how many chords I have. I don't have to be staring at the page as much, and the main goal of this is to get to a memorization stage in some capacity. This is not going to be true of absolutely every piece. If you have a song with like 50 chords in it and different parts and all that sort of stuff, maybe memorization is going to be hard and you're going to need a little bit of a visual aid. If you're playing classical piano, maybe you're going to need a little bit of reading involved in that. But we want to get it to some point where you can not be staring at a page as much. So if you think about it in a very easy way, if you're staring at the page, that's one more computer program going in your brain that could kind of be used somewhere else. All right, so we're going to cut it down. Then we're going to look at, like, in that context, what am I doing rhythmically? So let's say the song was sounded like this. I can consolidate that information by saying it's the same strum pattern every single time. It's down, 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 every single time, right? So I don't have to think, is on the third beat or third chord, am I changing my rhythmic pattern? No, none of that stuff. We're just playing the same thing every time. Once we can get some of those out of the way where we're not looking at the page, then we can start looking at your instrument, right? You want to be having your eyes, and guitar specifically, I think, on your left hand, all right? So once we cut all that stuff down and you're now, say you have it memorized, that's the ideal situation, right? Say we have it memorized, then that's when we can take it to the song and start playing along to the song and practicing our rhythm. The rhythm, to me, is the part of this that is obviously the hardest. Maybe that's an opinion, but I think it's the hardest. And it's the part that kind of gets you to that point of completion. Music is playing notes and it's playing it at the right time, right? So if we're not doing it at the right time, it's technically just as wrong as if you're playing the wrong notes. So in order to do that, you can go 3 different ways. You can play that to a metronome, you can play that to a drum beat, or you can play that to the song. Since this isn't a real song, we're going to use a drum beat app. Now, you can do drum beat apps, and I think they work probably a little bit better than metronomes, but each has its benefit, its pro and its con, right? So if you're doing it to a drum beat app, say something like this, it'll sound like this. You get that going, and then we're just going to try to put it in time. So say, for example, we can't play along to that. It's a little bit too fast. What I would like you to do is then take down the rhythmic durations or just divisions that you're playing there. Say you can't play that eighth note pattern. Say we can't get the down ups going. Where you start with on that is just, can I hit beat 1, right? And this is why the physicality part of this is important. We make sure we can play the chords in some capacity. So beat 1 would be. Now we have it on some sort of rhythmic track, and then you can build it from there. Like, do we want to do dun, dun? That's what we're going for, right? Then we could get the 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that would sound like. Give yourself time to move those chords, but we're still getting rhythmic with it. And then eventually the idea is that you work up to that. Now, the other option here is that you just drop the tempo, right? Say we can't play that full pattern that's 80 beats per minute, but we can play a little slower and go. You could do it that way, and then you could, like you're lifting weights in the gym, just keep putting more weights on, right? So if you do 60 one day, then you're looking for 70 the next day, and then you're looking for 80 the next day after that, right? You could also do it to a metronome. The metronome idea usually people don't like as much, mostly because when you're listening to music, that's not the thing that's employed, right? When we listen to music, typically speaking, you're listening to drums as your rhythmic timekeeper. You're not listening to somebody just go like this, all right? Some students don't really work well with a metronome because they have that sense of rhythm ingrained with a drum pattern. However, on a drum pattern, there are distinct beats 1, beats 2, beats 3, and beats 4, and if you get off that pattern, you can't reset as quickly. A metronome might be nice also if you're looking to go into a studio and record something. Typically speaking, you're going to have to play to a metronome or a click. So you do want to develop that skill. The one thing that I usually see as a problem with metronomes is not necessarily the metronome itself, but is that the idea that you can't play the song to that tempo in the first place, and then the metronome becomes somewhat of an anxiety-inducing tool. It just becomes something where you hear that metronome going, you can't do it, and it just keeps ticking and ticking and ticking. So you want to make sure that when you're going into that third step, you are prepared, right? That's why we're doing the first step of physically playing them, making sure we're not struggling on the physicality. The second step being consolidation and memorization, that we really know what we're playing and we can focus as much as possible on the physicality. And then we get to the rhythmic step of that. If we flip these and we don't do this in this order, say, for example, you get this song you've never learned and you just try to play it to a metronome or to the song right away, probably not going to happen, right? Because you're just looking at raw information and reacting. If it's really below your skill level, you can probably do that. But if it's something that we're actually trying to aspire to, and it's something that's outside of our Venn diagram of what we know how to do, that's going to be pretty hard to just right away play it. All right. And if you do, maybe it's not as challenging as it needs to be. If we don't consolidate the information, we don't memorize at all, you're going to be staring at a page. Honestly, it's going to be pretty hard to play something very, very complicated and also be staring at the page at the same time. It's doable, and tons of people do it. But I do think for more colloquial sort of songs, it's a little bit easier if we get some degree of memorization. And that doesn't mean that we have to know everything note for note, but we have to make it a little easier for ourselves to really be present in what we're doing. It also, like I said, keeps you more present, right? So if you're playing with a group, you're not just staring at a page, you're looking at the musicians around you, right? You're looking at the drummer. If he has a hit that is rhythmically a little bit out of time, you can look at him, right? If we're staring at a page the whole time, we're not really fully in it. Okay, so those are just some tips to get you started on playing on any instrument, and a little sequential order for those. Again, those being physically play something, work on consolidation and memorization, and then rhythmically play something to a metronome, to a drum beat, or to the song.